Hello everyone. I'll walk you through the engulfing bar paradigm indicator by Blaz. Mainly this one indicator developed based on the EBP model explained by Omar. You can find him on his socials under Train and Trade. Unfortunately, we don't have in the market an indicator that actually plots for us these EBPs. So to help the community, I developed one, and I'll going to walk you guys through it in this video. So before hopping into that, just to explain to people who don't know the EBPs, what is an EBP and what do we focus on mainly. So let me open up the candles just to take you through what sort of EBPs we're focusing on. So the engulfing bar is a well-known candlestick pattern and has been used for ages. And some people would consider these to be engulfing bars as long as the second candle engulfs or closes above the body of the prior candle, then that would be considered as an engulfing candle. Same if the second candle closes above the body and below the high of the previous candle, they'll still consider this to be an engulfing candle. Of course, if we fail to close above the previous candle's body, then that's not an engulfing. It's same even if we get a sweep, that would still not be considered as engulfing. So these two are conditions which we're not going to look into. So for people, this might be an engulfing, but for us, we're not going to look into that. Our main focus is only going to be on the high probability engulfing bars, the ones that have swept the previous range's side, whether it is a low or a high, and then managed to close on the opposite side above the body. So in this case, if we look at this bullish example, we have a sweep of a prior candle's low, and then the candle closed above the body of the previous candle and above the high. We will also consider EBP if we get a sweep and a closure above the body, even though if it was below the high of the previous candle, we will still consider this to be a good EBP. But of course, in terms of probability, this one is going to be higher probability EBP because it shows urgency and it shows momentum. This has displaced so much more that it covered the full range after sweeping the side of it and then closed to the opposite side. So both of these are EBPs, but this one is even higher probability. And then we have this example here. This is also a high probability because we're normally would be in an upward trend. And then if we manage to sweep a low and close even stronger above the range of that bullish candle, this will still be an EBP for us. Yeah. So just to show you, these aren't engulfing bars. This, for some people, they would consider this to be an engulfing bar. But for us, these are the high quality EBPs that we're going to focus on. So this indicator is built to focus only on these three types of candlestick patterns, and you can flip this to the bearish case. All right, so if we look at this example here, we have the Euro USD on the daily time frame. If we try to find those patterns that we've just spoke about, you can see this is one of the examples. Although the closure is quite small above the body of the previous candle, but this is still considered to be an EBP in this case. Another example we can see is this one, which has slightly swept the previous candle's high and then closed below. So that will still be an EBP. Another example is this one. So this here it has swept previous candles high, but failed to close below the body of the previous candle. So for us, that is not going to be an EBP. But look at this one. It has managed to sweep the high and then strongly close below the body. Although it didn't close below the low of the previous candle, but still this for us is considered to be an EBP as long as it has swept the high and then closed below the body of the previous candle. Yeah. Other examples we have is this one here and this one here. Again, you can see we got the sweep, we got the closure, and then the second candle has pushed quite strong into this fair value gap and then got back. So that was considered as resistance for price. And then again, it has swept the high and tried to push lower again, which has managed to push the price quite further from the EBP. Here we have this EBP, which was really nice. You can see sometimes these EBPs, you will get a reaction from them in the future, although they happened previously, but because of these candles showing significant institutional involvement, you can see here we had a nice reaction and the EBP candle has managed even to close above the high of the previous candle. So this shows urgency and displacement, and these are the types of EBPs we want to focus on when we take trades, the high probability trades. This one here, again, price came to these two EBPs on these areas. So this one here and this one here. So these two EBPs. And because of EBPs being so strong in terms of resistance, these are considered to be high resistant patterns. Price would normally react to those locations. And as you've seen here, price failed to continue to these highs. So it has retraced a bit, and then price got into this fair value gap, swept the previous low, and then pushed higher, forming another EBP. In this case, it's a really nice structure. We have already, taken the liquidity and played with the resistance in this location. We've retraced. We formed a nice fair value gap, and price has swept the previous candle into that fair value gap and then strongly closed above, which gives us a really nice expectation for the next day that the bias is going to be bullish, and we are most probably going to take that high, that near high, as a target. So for us, if we're going to formulate this idea, I would probably plot a range, just dividing this range, EBP range, into quartiles, just to measure the retracement of the next candle, where for a bullish scenario, I would always want price to react on the premium level of this range, which is 50% and above. I don't want it to go all the way down. I want it to show urgency and momentum and displacement immediately going to my target. So I don't want it to play around in this location. So for me, on the daily time frame, I have formulated my bias that I'm going to be the next day bullish, and this is my target. So then I can drop lower to the lower time frames. In this case, let's say the 4 hour, and I can start looking for some fair value gaps. And in our scenario here, in our case, we can see that we had a really nice fair value gap in this location, and it is around 25% retracement of our EBP range, which is this line. This is the 50, this is 75. And then we have this fair value gap, and also it aligns with this 4 hour order block, which gives us a really nice strong area for us to anticipate that price would most probably react at this location if we have the low below the second candle of the fair value gap formation. So this is candle 1, 2, 3, and this is the fair value gap at the candle 2, and our entry mostly will be there. The low will be below the low, of the candle 2. And then we would target 2R, or we can follow the structure looking at this high. We're going to get 2.2. Or we can even go much further if we believe on the daily basis, on the daily time frame, that price might even reach to that high. Then it might be it might gives us around 5.8 Rs in this example. And you can see the urgency after we had this first EBP and then this second EBP. Price really pushed through these previous liquidity zones. For some people, they would also use projections, standard deviations, to project these EBPs. So in our example here, we can project this range above to see where price might reach if we're not following these liquidity, or if we want to formulate some high probability zones where we can use as targets. In our example here, we have this first standard deviation, second standard deviation, and you can see it's slightly above the first, but this second standard deviation, it almost aligns with this old high. So for us, we can also consider that to be as a target, and we can leave some runners on our trade to target that 2 standard deviation. But now, rather than me plotting all these manually and trying to do this all manually, I can, with a simple click of a button, get something to do this for me. So in this case, that's where the EBP indicator comes in. So as you can see, quickly, within no time, I have the indicator plotting for me all the EBPs present on my chart, and I can play with the number of setups that I can see on my chart. So in this case, if I increase that number, I can see more EBPs. If I reduce it, I can see that. If I only want to focus on the most recent one, I can do that, which will only show me that. Or I can keep it wherever I want. And then at the moment, I have set my EBP to be on the daily, which is something I can control. And if we look at our previous example, which we have discussed here, this EBP, and then drop to the 4-hour time frame, you can immediately see that the indicator will plot for me all the fair value gaps that are within these EBPs. Yeah, and you can see it automatically divides that range into quartiles for me, and it shades it so that I know exactly which candle I'm looking at. And also we have these nice vertical separators to align with these high time frame candles. So I don't need to hop between the daily and the 4-hourly or the 1-hour time frame to see which candle I'm trading. Where is the EBP? What sort of fair value gaps do I have there? What PD arrays am I going to use to formulate my idea? I can do that easily with this indicator, dividing these candles and showing me exactly what this high time frame indicator is at. So you can see this is on Thursday, the 22nd of January, which has happened recently, which is this one. This is the Thursday candle. This is the candle we're looking at. And then on Friday, which is this candle, you can start formulating your idea where you have this nice fair value gap that hasn't been mitigated yet within the EBP, where price has came into it and then pushed from there. You can see some of these fair value gaps grayed out, and the reason behind this is that these have already been mitigated within the EBP. So in this candle, in this EBP, you can see this has already been mitigated, this fair value gap, by that candle. And here we have mitigated that in this candle. Also on the bearish EBPs, it's the same. You can see this has been mitigated. So automatically the indicator will tell you that, you know what, this has already been mitigated. Try focusing on the ones that haven't been mitigated. In this case, these are the bearish fair value gaps. They're going to be colored in red, the mitigated in gray, and the unmitigated bullish are going to be green. And of course, all of these are fully customizable. In terms of the projections, you don't need to do that using Fibonacci tool and all that. You can simply just click that and you will get your standard deviation projections, and you can choose how many of these you want to see. I've limited the number of projections to 5 because beyond that becomes a bit far away for an EBP. You want price to reach your target within the upcoming 2 to 3 candles, and mostly 5 is quite far away. So I've left it to maximum be 5 in this case. So those are the main things as we look on the chart. Let me go and speak about the settings we have for this indicator and what you're capable of doing. Of course, the first one is alerts. So if you want to be alerted of any new forming EBPs, you can do that by enabling this alert and then going to this 3 dots and then clicking on add alert on EBP. With this, you will need to specify whether you want to be only notified of the next upcoming EBP and the alert should stop notifying you. So that's once per bar. Once that is triggered, you won't be notified of any future EBPs. But if you change this to something else like once per bar close, that's once per bar, you'll be notified on the next ones. Normally, it will be here only once. So change that to either once per bar or once per bar close. And I prefer to have it once per bar close. Whenever the EBP closes, you will get notified, and you will also get notified of any future EBPs. The alert is going to still be valid and active, and it won't stop working as if you have it on only once. So going back to the settings, that's the first setting. You'll need to have this enabled for the alert to work. This is mainly showing you the number of setups you want. The maximum for this is 50. Above that your chart becomes clustered. The best thing to do is just to use replay mode, go back, and then you can see the older 50 setups on your chart. You can also filter these EBPs to only look at the bullish or bearish EBPs. So in this example, you can see if I set that up to bullish, you can see 8 setups that are bullish. And if you change this to bearish, it will show you the most recent 8 EBPs that are bearish. And if you have this balance, then it will show you both bullish and bearish latest 8 setups based on the number of setups you have. And then you have these quartiles. So these are the dividers where it measures the retracement of the next candle, whether it is 25, 50, 75, and so on. If you don't want these to be visible in your chart, you can remove them. So you will only have that shade of EBP. You can change the line style, the color, and the width as you like. The fair value gaps that I've mentioned are these ones. So you can disable them if you don't want to see them on the chart, or you can keep them enabled. If you want to keep your chart clear and you only want to focus on the fair value gaps that haven't been mitigated yet, then you can remove this, toggle that off, and it will hide all the mitigated fair value gaps, and you can only see the unmitigated fair value gaps that are bearish and bullish in this case. Yeah. These settings from here is for the high time frame candles. So at the moment, I cranked up the number to 10 candles for the high time frame. I can change this to minimum 5 or all the way to 10, depending on how you want to see this. You can play with the distance of these candles from the current price. So you can have this as 10 or whatever. The high time frame candles would move with it. The gap, you can specify what do you want the gap to be between each of these candles. And the width also, you can change that to have these candles slightly fatter if you like. But the default settings are all at 0. These are basically the styling, the colors of these candles. You can change the body color, the border, as well as the wick as you like. Looking at these features, we have the high time frame open horizontal line. So that would mark for you the latest high time frame candle open. In this case, this one, which is today, Thursday. You can change the style, the color, and the width for all of these. These high time frame open vertical are basically these separation based on your EBP high time frame. In this case, this one. So if I change this to, let's say, 4 hours, yeah, which is the time frame I'm at, it will plot for me the EBP to the 4 hour, and this will change to 4 hour. And you can see it labels for me the open of each of the 4 hour candles. If I drop lower, these vertical separations are going to be there. If I go to 5 minutes, for example, you can see it will still show me where each of these 4 hour candles have opened and where are these 4 hour EBPs on this. And even if you go to 1 minute, that will still be visible once it loads. So that's that. And you can still see the high time frames and you can still see your EBPs. So that's a very handy feature there. One thing about these, so if you're on the 4 hour EBP time frame and you went to the daily as an example, rather than having weird drawings on your chart, the indicator will automatically hide everything and then tell you what's going on. It would tell you that the EBP has been disabled, what is the reason and what you should be doing. So it will guide you through the solution for that. So it tells you that at the moment, our time frame is higher than the EBP time frame that we've chosen. So we either need to change this to daily for EBPs to be plotted, or if we are on the 4 hour, we need to go lower to the 4 hour or 1 hour to see these EBPs. Otherwise, they'll be hidden. Yeah. So that's a handy feature out there. So yeah, looking at these, so even these high time frame candles, they also have fair value gaps. So if we go to the daily as an example, and we change this to the daily to see the daily EBPs. And by the way, you can change the color of these EBP shades here. I have them at the moment as black and 5%. So you can change them as you like. But then if we go to something like YM, because it normally has a lot of volume imbalance and fair value gaps. So let's go back in time, for example, here. That's lovely. So you can see these high time frames will plot for you the fair value gaps that are within them, as well as the volume imbalances. Yeah, so you can play with those as well. Bullish fair value gap, if you'd like to change that to something else like green rather than gray. And if you like the bearish fair value gaps to be red, you can do that. Volume imbalance, if you have a preference like blue or something, you can do that. All these are fully customizable based on your theme and based on your preference. These labels, you can keep them on the chart, or if you don't want to see them, you can remove them, and you can also change their colors as you like. Yeah, I'll keep all the settings as they were. Want to apply that. And then if we look at the next section, we have the filters. So for this section, if, for example, you're a person who only wants to see the EBPs on maximum, let's say 4 hour, when you do your daily analysis, you don't want to see EBPs as an example, or you don't want to see these EBPs on the weekly. The highest EBPs you want to see, this indicator plotting, is on the daily, for example. So if you keep this to the weekly, and then you click here, you toggle this on to show below weekly. If you're on the daily, then you will see your EBPs and you will see your high time frame candles. But if you move to the weekly, everything will disappear to do your high time frame analysis, and it will tell you visibility filter is in action. But if you go back to your daily, it will resume plotting that for you. Yeah, so it's a very handy feature if you like to hide things and keep your chart clean. When we get to this section where we're talking about session liquidity, this is a very powerful feature you can have on your EBP to only look at the high quality EBPs, if you like. So let's go to Euro USD, back to our pair, which is this one, and then go back to current price action. So at the moment, I have the EBP plotting for me all the EBPs that are visible and available on my chart on the daily. But if I only want to focus on certain EBPs that have swept a range, whether it is a session or a couple of hours that are based on my interest, that I believe that range is something I want to see swept and price moving from there, forming an EBP, you can control and do that. I'll remove this weekly filter and then enable this. You will see it tells you liquidity sweep feature only works intraday, shift to lower timeframes. So this won't work on the daily. You will need to move slightly lower on the hourly or less than that. Even for hourly, it will work fine. In this case, you won't see anything because when you enable this filter, you still need to specify which EBPs you're interested to see sweeping which range. So if, for example, I have by default set these sessions to be Asian, London, and New York session, but I just changed this to reflect an example, which we're going to look at. But at the moment, let's say if I want to see the EBPs that have only swept the London session, yeah. So if you scroll back, if we can find one, or we can even choose multiple. Oh yeah, this is on the daily, so that's not going to work. Let's set this to be the 4 hourly. So we want to see a 4 hourly EBP that has swept the previous session liquidity. So you can see this is from 2 to 5. This is a 4, by the way, this is 4 hourly EBP. So our indicator has plot for us that range, which we have specified here from 2 to 5. And then we had this sweep of the high of the range and a closure below it, which is great. So this tells us that this EBP has swept the range that we are interested in. Other examples, if we can find one near, here we go. So we have this one. It has swept that London low and closed above. This swept London high and closed below, which indicates that price might push from there. And you can also specify a time that you're interested in. Let's say the Frankfurt session from 1 to 2 as an example. It will plot for you the indicators, and of course at the moment I'm on the hourly, so you won't see that yellow box. But if you drop on a lower time frame, then that's when you'll be able to see that yellow box. So you can see this is the range we're interested in, and this EBP has swept that range and closed below. So that's a strong EBP for us. If I go back to default settings, just to show you a couple of examples. So reset everything back to normal and have this around 10 as an example, and this on the 4 hours, let's say. And I'm interested in seeing the EBPs that have swept sessions. So you can see, as an example here, this is a nice bullish EBP, swept Asian range during London, closed above, price pushed higher. Same here, same here. And you can see this one as well. This is a really nice example where we had this large unmitigated EBP. Fair value gap. If you have your stop above the second, the candle 2 of the fair value gap, and then you target 2R or you target nearby structure, it would have given you a really nice RR, and it would have been a sniper entry in this case. This has failed. Of course, it's not going to work always, but great examples as we've seen here. There is also a handy feature that is included with this sweep feature, which is this one, reset sweep sessions at new day. What this means is that at the moment, I'm only interested in the EBPs that have swept the range I have specified and created an EBP within the same day. So both of the range I'm interested in and the EBP has happened within the same day. If I'm interested in the EBPs that have swept the range I've specified, even if it happens in the next day, then what I can do is disable this. And as an example, let's say we're looking at the London session. You can see here in this example, once it loads, that this is our London session that happened in this Wednesday. On Thursday, this EBP has formed and it has swept that low and then formed our EBP. So I'm still interested in that. If you are, then you will have that setting to be disabled. If you want EBPs even sweeping the range in the next day and forming the EBP for you. So that what's that feature is for. Or you want it to happen the same day, it will show you both. But if you're a person who's only focused on the EBPs that happen within the same day, you don't care about the EBPs that happen, that sweep my range within the next day, then you will have that setting to be enabled so that all the previous days sweep range will disappear, will be not interested to us. I think this is one of the examples where the sweep has potentially happened within the next day. But if we reset this back, then this wouldn't be considered as an EBP in this case because we're not interested in the sweeps and EBPs that happen after a day. But you can still see that this has actually worked in our case. So if you were interested, you've specified your range. This has formed with a nice fair value gap. You could have potentially traded this lower. So that is a handy feature out there if someone is keen to use it and is also interested in EBPs happening in next days, not only the same day, then you have that provided to you as well. So these projections I've already talked about. In terms of the warning boxes you get at the bottom right of your screen, at the moment I have my EBP set on the 4 hours, but if I change this to let's say the hourly, which is the time frame that I'm in, and then I went to the daily, I shouldn't be able to see any EBPs in this case because my time frame, my chart time frame is higher than the EBP time frame that I've selected, and I will get a warning box. But if you're someone who's already used to this and you know how to use the indicator, you don't need to be warned about all these. And also with the visibility filter, for example, if it is enabled on the daily and I'm on the daily, it will tell me visibility filter is in action. Also for the liquidity, if this is enabled and you are above intraday, it's on the daily or the weekly or something, it will tell you here in details what's happening. But if you're someone who's already used and know what is happening, then you wouldn't simply have this enabled. You can just disable this and then worry about some other things. You know what is happening. You know why you haven't seen your EBPs on the daily because you've set it to be on the hourly. As an example, you don't need to get this. And especially if you're using this indicator on the phone and you're already used to it, you know how it functions. You might not need to see those boxes popping up all the time. So you can disable that and having your chart clean. Or you can just keep it open, enabled to see those boxes. Yeah. So that's mainly about all the settings that comes with the EBP indicator, all the features. I believe this is very powerful. It saves you loads of time rather than you plotting these and drawing these by yourself. You want this to happen far more quickly, as well as you want to be notified of any of these EBPs happening. You don't want to keep your chart open all the time. That's basically what most of our traders are aiming for, to have a hands-off experience, being away from our charts. Once our setup comes, that's when we take an action. Otherwise, we don't want to be all the time on the screens trying to find these, and then we see ourselves jumping into trades that we're not supposed to be taking. So these alerts are quite handy to have, to only be notified when it's time for us to take an action. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy using this indicator. And if you have any suggestions, or you're facing any issues, you'd like any help, or you have in mind some great ideas to add to the EBP indicator, let me know if you want to see anything, and I'll work on adding it for you guys. Having said that, peace, and see you into the next one.